Welcome back to episode number 2, guys. Today we've got lots of deadlifts, some close grip bench pressing and upper back assistance, and we've also got some meal prepping involved later on in the video. Now, as always, not all sets and reps are shown, as we don't want to make the workout footage far too long, but today I did a wee bit of an experiment on my 6th set. Now obviously, as you can see, the platform itself is on a block of rubber mats, and then those rubber mats, those rubber spongy mats, are all on a floor worth of rubber mats, which are very spongy and obviously condense underneath the load and absorb the load. And what it actually does is the bar is roughly about, maybe sinks about half an inch into it, and since I've done that, my setup at the bottom has never felt the same, and the speed on the entire movement has just never felt the same. My deadlifts have just not felt as good. And the reason that I did that was when the wood was just on the concrete, it would make the ground shake and it would make far too much noise, and it just was not good. It would make all the ground shake, and obviously we don't want the ground shaking, as that could lead to puncturing walls and just creating all kinds of problems in the foundation of the house potentially. So we had to do this, and it really has been having a negative effect on my deadlifts. And so today, as you see here, this is my sixth set. So after 6 sets, as you can see how quickly the first rep moves, myself felt so much better, and the bar just moved so much quicker throughout. And you actually heard me say, what the F? The bar just moved so much quicker, myself felt so much better. And here you actually see me asking Robbie just what the sound was like and if the ground was shaking, and it was a little bit. So then we put them back up. But because of this, what I'm doing is we're going to be building an Olympic spec platform. I spoke about this in an earlier video. So we're going to be building an Olympic spec platform. So it's going to be 8 feet by 8 feet, and it's going to be 50 centimeters high of plywood, which again is hopefully going to absorb enough of the pressure so that the floor won't shake and it won't have a negative effect onto the foundations of the house. But what it's going to allow me to do is, one, it's not going to sink into it, so it's not going to be half an inch lower, and it's not going to absorb the pressure and just make my starting position less optimal, and just let the speed much worse throughout the whole movement. So that is the plan. Hopefully if all goes to plan, I will hopefully have that built within the next kind of 10 days. So leading forward into the competition, hopefully that will make my a lot more optimal. However, again, there's only one way to tell. What I'm also going to do is it's going to save a lot of space, because I'm going to actually put my squat rack onto that. Because it's going to be 8 feet by 8 feet, there's going to be room for my rack, and I'm going to nail my rack down into that. So it's going to make the place a lot more room for other places for other things to have. So it will make room for, in the future, I'm going to try and get myself a glute ham raise. I'm going to try and get a cable machine in there. What I'm also thinking about doing is just buying a good high quality bench. So a high quality bench, like a free bench that you can move about, and then that also just means that I'd bench press out the power rack, so that'd make even more room, because then I could get rid of the actual bench press itself, and then it means that I could fill it up with other things, other forms of equipment that will have a positive impact onto my training. The kind of 2 main things I want after building that platform is I'd like a cable machine so that I can train my arms with, and also just do some like face pulls and stuff with, and then I'd also like a glute ham raise, as I feel that they are an extremely good lower body accessory that not a lot of people have access to. But if you have access to, I think it's probably one of the best accessories that you could probably be doing for your lower body. Alright, so just finished prepping, almost finished prepping this week's meat. So I've got all my chicken breasts laid out, and I've got my mince, I've got red onions, I've got homemade breadcrumbs, and then some olive oil in here, which I'll be making into beef burgers. And then I've got this, going to cook these, mix these up, put these into 150 gram burgers each. So I should get about 4 out of that, maybe 5, depending, sometimes 5, but usually 4. This will turn into about roughly, I think, 6 portions, which should last me 3 or 4 days, which for me find essential. Meal prepping like that I find essential, as it really it allows me to just hit my food so much easier, my protein so much easier. And for those of you that's saying that they really struggle to hit their macros because they struggle to get food intake in, or they go out with food and then they end up they don't have access to food that fits their macros, which I don't really understand, because anything can fit your macros. But for me, what I find is if I make the food, so if I make that chicken and I put that chicken in the fridge and I put the beef in the fridge, then I always go and eat it, because then it's there and I don't want to waste the food, if that makes sense. And that is just a kind of quick tip that I find works for me, especially with protein, with my protein sources, that if I make them and I bag them and I put them in the fridge, they're there. If I don't eat them, they'll go off. It'll be a waste of food, it'll be a waste of money. That's what I do. With carbohydrates and stuff, it's a lot easier, because carbohydrates don't tend to go off as easily, and you can have them for much longer without them being wasted. But that's just a kind of wee tip that I like to use. So this is a finished product. I actually got 6 burgers. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 burgers, which was very surprising to me. So I'm going to just freeze. I'm going to keep 1 for today. I'm going to freeze the other 5. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 portions for the 1 portion of chicken. So again, I'm going to put these all in the fridge, as these will be used in a couple of days. And this is pretty much what it looks like. So I'm well ahead of the game. That sets up the next few days really, really nicely. Again, as I always say, and I'm going to always keep emphasising it, following macros, which is what I do, is 100% optimal, in my opinion. However, it is only 100% optimal if you use it correctly. So again, people like to go by the 80-20, I like to go by the 90-10 rule. If you fit 90, so if you hit your protein requirements for the day, and 90% of that protein requirement comes from wholesome, high quality sources, then that is brilliant. If you're hitting your fibre, you're hitting all your macronutrients, and now you're hitting all that within a day, throwing in some cake or something into those macros is going to have no adverse effects on anything. If anything, it's only going to have good effects, because it's going to have good psychological effects, because you're still hitting your fibre, your macronutrients, you're hitting your proteins with very good sources, you're getting in all your vegetables, that is, throwing in some cake on top of all that stuff is going to have some very, very, very good psychological effects, which then is a big plus. So in my opinion, that's only going to do good. But, so therefore, you do not need to meal prep, right? But the reason I meal prep is because I find it much easier that when I meal prep, I don't have the excuse. I only meal prep protein, by the way, but I don't have the excuse not to take my protein in from good sources, because if it's there, I'm not going to waste it. So it's like, oh, right, I'm going to have my next meal now, and I see chicken in the fridge, I'm automatically going to take that chicken out and I'm going to use it. But if that wasn't there, I might feel a little bit lazy, but you know what, I can't be bothered cooking, I'm just going to have this. And then it's used with something that's not quite as optimal, in my opinion. That's my take on it. It works for me, it works for all of my clients, and I do think it'd work for you. But please believe me, following macros is the best tool you could ever use if you use it correctly.
Would you ever forget anything you know? Take a chance to step outside.